Their regular season opener is Tuesday against Golden State. The Clippers are at Golden State tonight. They play their regular season opener Wednesday at Utah. The Rams are flying to London this morning after a week-long stay in Baltimore. They play Jacksonville Sunday morning. The Chargers are at home Sunday against the 5-1 Indianapolis Colts. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for Black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power from seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing, racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County, Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. The Pope, the Presidents, and the People, an expanded 2-hour edition of Reflectivity on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Dr. Aza Karam joins me, along with the show producer, director, and host of Fat Meat Fridays, Gina Towns, on Reflectivity to discuss what top faith leaders around the world are saying about America and the end of the Israel-Gaza conflict. We're wondering if the Pope will weigh in on justice, truth, and mercy. Will the people and their leaders wage the battle that all of history repeats, operating in love, peace, and courage and civility? Or will the study of war, turmoil, cowardice, and hate take hold of humanity in this generation? The answer to this question will decide our fate in an age that could have dire consequences. Dr. Karam currently is a member of the United Nations Secretary General's High-Level Advisory Board on Effective Multilateralism. Prior to joining Religions for Peace, she served for nearly 2 decades in the United Nations, including as a coordinator of the Arab Human Development Reports, a senior advisor on culture, and lead facilitator, trainer for the UN Strategic Learning Exchanges on Religion, Development, and Diplomacy. During her time in the UN, she founded and was governor of the United Nations Interagency Task Force on Religion and Development, as well as the Multi-Faith Advisory Council on that task force. Gina Towns is the president and CEO of 519 Productions and the executive producer and creative director of the program director for the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Smiley Audio Media's KBLA Talk 1580. She's also the host of Reflectivity on our weekly series, Fat Meat Fridays, a graduate of Hampton University, Bachelor's of Arts in Mass Communication and Journalism, a Master's of Theology and Social Justice from Princeton Theological Seminary, co-producer and Emmy Award-nominated documentarian, Hampton University, One of the Wonders of the World, and as a songwriter, co-producer, and performer, her single, Yes, at number 26 with a bullet on the Billboard charts. Dr. Karam, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much, Jesse. It is absolutely a joy to be with you here today, especially given your other guest, who's Gina.
Doc, it's always a pleasure. Gina, welcome forward to Fat Meat Fridays.
Hi, Jesse Jackson Jr. Long week.
Dr. Crum, let's jump right in. We have about 3 minutes before the break. The steady march towards imperialism, some form of authoritarianism, oligarchism, totalitarianism, and tyranny. The United States appears to be right at the threshold of something we haven't seen in the 250-year history of the Republic. Your initial thoughts about the anxiety and the spirit energy that's in our nation at this hour?
I believe very strongly that what we're seeing here is the result of a polarization that has been deepened significantly by different interests, political interests, economic interests, etc. We are seeing a moment in which people are not able to speak across different divides to one another, while at the same time, each is nursing their own wounds. Rather than be able to hear and visibly see the abilities to speak with one another rather than talk at one another, I think we're missing the voices of compassion, but we're also missing the voices that would speak outside of spheres of interest, outside of fear. I think this country is going through and towards civil unrest, which can very quickly translate into civil conflict. But I think we're afraid of naming it. I think we're afraid of saying and coming face to face with the fact that we may be going through or towards, God forbid, a civil war. But I think it's time we start naming what is happening in our communities between one another, because we're so busy being afraid and or trying to use big words to explain and describe as though everything's going to be okay, but we're not okay. We are not okay. And when this happens to the United States of America, it impacts on the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is impacting on the United States, and the rest of the world is not okay either. So I think it's time that we try to hear and see the voices of the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. I'm struggling to hear them, Jesse. I'm struggling to see, because I was always looking at the space of religious leaders and religious institutions, but I was never looking at only one space. I find all of us seem to be waiting to see what the Pope says, and I absolutely want to see and hear what the Pope says, but the Pope is just the Pope of the Catholics. We have to be able to see a moment like that where Rabbi Herschel and Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and their folk and their kind came together and linked arms and walked in solidarity and spoke in solidarity together before the divisions that ripped apart the civil rights movement. We need to see the civil rights movement. We need to walk behind those leaders. We need to be those leaders ourselves and walk together with our arms locked against multiple forms of injustice, not just one in one country or one part of the world or one part of religious community or one part of, no. We need to understand that because we are in a civil conflict space, we must also learn how to live the civil solidarity with one another. And that means that we have to look beyond our own fears for ourselves and our families and look towards that which is good for everyone.
In this hour, Dr. Aza Karam joins Jesse Jackson Jr. and Gina Towns for a moment of reflectivity. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for Black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts and building patient power. From seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA. Theater as a force for change. Voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing. Racism on the left. Building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County. Committee for the First Amendment and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Severe from Vicks.
Sinex Severe nasal spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Severe instantly relieves nasal congestion and works 6 times faster than nasal decongestant tablets. The 12 hours of relief allow you to get back to the moments that matter without congestion.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Try Sinex Severe from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Oh, how's that flu, babe? Did you take DayQuil Intense Flu yet?
Nah, I got this. Ugh, okay, I don't got this.
You stay on the couch, and I'll grab the DayQuil.
Undo your flu symptoms with DayQuil Intense Flu. DayQuil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms.
I'm ready for that to-do list.
Wow, you do got this.
DayQuil Intense Flu. The daytime coughing, aching, fever, under your flu, medicine. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Azza Karam, currently a member of the United Nations Secretary General's High-Level Advisory Board on Effective Multilateralism, is our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Gina, Dr. Karam touched upon a subject that I've shied away from, even though I've studied it and written about it extensively, especially in 2001. My new book, then at the time, A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights, has a copy of my picture on the cover, the American flag and the Confederate flag, arguing that we have been teetering, if you will, on the verge of civil war since the last one ended. It's just that both sides took on different names, terminologies, Republicans and Democrats, red and blue, liberal and conservative, but we've always been executing in some way, shape, or fashion civil war in one form or another, from battlefields to legislatures and to the Congress. Gina, civil war.
You know, that is, I think, something that no one does want to talk about, though we had a movie that came out maybe a year or two ago where 2 or 3 of the states were in battle and engaged in civil war in the country. And then you could go to another part of the country and those people had no idea that the country was at war or what you were talking about. I almost feel like that's what we are. But when we think about having agency, you either in the previous civil war in our country, and God forbid that is where we end up. The agency of the slave was, the position that made you want to move forward, and the resiliency that you talked about in order to have multiple people stand up. I think having come from a position of being a slave versus people now who have never been enslaved and have a certain freedom, are used to having that freedom, that may be one of the reasons why we find ourselves with not as many voices coming forward, kind of the deer in the headlight look. And so coming from a different position, having different agency in this generation certainly affects where we are in a different way.
Dr. Crom, I wrote a book in 2001 called A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights. And reportedly, Nancy Pelosi, when she was hiding, if you will, or being escorted and protected away from the crowd that invaded the Capitol on January 6th, she said, Jesse Jackson Jr. told us this was going to happen. She remembered that. That all the Confederate flags that were hanging in the Capitol that were parts of the southern states. I've always seen the prepositioning of troops, National Guardsmen in the cities, places and areas that the Confederacy in the 1860s could not conquer on their own. For Trump to place them in Chicago, in Washington, D.C., in Los Angeles, talking about Baltimore, Maryland, looking at New Orleans, Louisiana, places where the Confederacy was unsuccessful. And now we see Donald Trump inviting, if you will, just this past week, the Texans into Chicago, and the possibility within the next 24, maybe even 48 hours, the invocation of the Insurrection Act, giving the President of the United States broad powers. And there's no such thing as invoking the Insurrection Act for the city of Chicago. It gives him broad powers in every city in the United States of America. This is a very perilous journey, Dr. Crom, that our nation finds itself on and in at this hour.
I think you've said it. You've captured it very, very powerfully, Jesse. And I think we need to keep in mind a few things. There is a community that is willing to pray for everyone and pray for peace amongst everyone, but shies away from naming what is happening. And there are those who will name what is happening and celebrate it. But there are also the large majority that tends to be silent, who want to be able to coexist in peace with one another. We have to understand that conflict per se is actually healthy. It is okay to disagree with one another. It is okay to see things very differently. But once it transcends into taking up arms against one another and or using abusive or violent words towards one another, we have crossed a red line in our own ability to coexist. Our strength is not in the fact that we would avoid disagreement or avoid naming what we disagree about and how we disagree. Our strength lies in the ability to name, to face, and to nevertheless move into a space of civility, decency, and care for one another. And it is not so complicated and difficult to do, because we are all actually human with red blood running through all of us. So where we find ourselves unable to reach out, to reach our hand out to the other, that we have done such a good job of othering, where we will not reach out shows where we are actually incompetent, because we're only good enough to other, when in fact, all faith traditions tell us that it is important not to just stop othering, which heaven knows is good enough, but to effectively reach out to embrace the other, to see that the heart that beats inside them is the same as the heart that beats inside you, and your heartbeat affects their heartbeat, and vice versa. We seem to be stuck, unable to get that heart connection to one another, even though we lack for nothing. We do not lack the words, we do not lack the ability, we do not lack the body language, but we seem to have got ourselves stuck in hating the other, in fearing the other, in othering the other, when that which we believe in, that we many hide behind, is actually telling us that other is you, and you would not exist but for the other, and the other would not exist but for you.
I want to challenge this notion that the three religions that are represented around this table, the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Christian tradition, and the Islamic tradition, this other has a disease that exists within it. And we can't escape the idea that within the tenets of white supremacy, it exists within Judaism. The Aryan Jewish community seems to be united around certain precepts and concepts. The Christian American community seems to be united around certain evangelical notions that include white supremacy, and distances itself from the other. Both traditions turn to the Islamic community and sees it as some kind of far distant, not an immediate cousin, but some kind of far distant ideology that doesn't worship the same God that the others claim to worship in the monotheistic tradition of the God of Abraham. But here in the United States, when Lyndon Johnson says, "I'll tell you what's at the bottom of it all. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket." Picking your pocket part. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you, Lyndon Johnson says. So in this moment of civil strife, there is this idea that color matters. Trump is changing the refugee status of the United States to welcome more white people. He is deporting Black and brown people. He came to Chicago and to these cities looking for illegal immigrants, but the Texas boys who are here are beating the hell out of Black people at Walgreens and on the corners and wherever they can find them. I'm supportive of No King's Day, but I can't in good conscience encourage people of color to go down there and participate in that. We do not have the same rights as the white protesters in this process. We just don't have those rights. And they're showing up just 3 blocks from my home in our community, Dr. Karam, on 75th and South Shore Drive, not only arresting illegal, so-called undocumented workers, they call them illegal. I don't believe there's such thing as an illegal person, undocumented workers, but they also took a van load of Black people with them to wherever, and we haven't heard from those Black people since they took them. Extra constitutional activity that's taking place here. Mm-hmm. Dr. Karam, white supremacy is a factor in a global movement that's taking place right now. And there's probably no badge of so-called honor that unites this group of people more than the color of their skin.
There may not be a badge of honor that unites people, but there is still a beating heart that must unite all. I think we have to be insistent in understanding that, as afraid as some of us may be, quite rightly, the moment of fear cannot be succumbed to, Jesse. We need to understand that because we are so afraid for our kith and kin, this is also the time to stand for the other, not only to be worried and stay hidden because we worry about what will happen when we step outside. I understand that this sounds very goodness knows one is saying it from the comfort and protection of one's own home, but we are not meant to be standing in solidarity with one another, to take the hit for one another when things are going well, because obviously if things are going well, there's not going to be much of a hit. The point is precisely that it is when we feel the fear of what may happen when we stand in solidarity on a matter of principle, on justice, that is precisely when we have to take that leap of faith. That's why it's called the leap of faith. Take a leap of faith when things are hard and you are terrified deep down. You take the leap of faith because if you don't, everyone else won't, and will end up letting the very tiny voices appear loudest and effect the greatest change amongst us. And there's an interesting series or discipline that's been around now for a good couple of decades. It's called the discipline of humiliation studies. And it looks at how it is that as human beings over our lifetimes, if you will, we have a tendency to make, exactly as you were talking and describing, Lyndon Johnson, we have a tendency to pick on someone or some other and feel better. But when we pick on that other, we demean them, we deny them their integrity, we humiliate them. And if I don't stand for you when you're being humiliated, then nobody's going to stand for me when I'm being humiliated. And that standard of let's just humiliate so some of us can feel better than the other means we will all ultimately be humiliated together. And I think we have to appreciate that as much as the discourse of white supremacy and any and all kinds of extremism, as much as that is abhorrent and terrifying, this is also the scream of the humiliated. And unless and until we see that, name it, understand it, and extend our hand to figure out how we're going to talk this through or walk this through or live this through, we will always live in fear of and in a constant vicious cycle of humiliation that only goes towards violence and never takes us out of that vicious cycle. Those who are so mean, those who are so violent, are people who are deeply humiliated. How? I don't know. But we need to understand that. Bullies are humiliated, Jesse, are people who have been deeply humiliated over time. Yes, they are bullies today, but really there is a humiliated man. And we need to be able to start thinking and seeing that other, that we are othering in our own words right now. We need to see that other as human and worthy of dignity. Can we do that?
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest is Aza Karam. She is an official at the United Nations and also a national and international leader in many of our different faith traditions, particularly around issues of reconciliation. There will be more on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with Dr. Karam and Gina Towns on reflectivity when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams says he will not disappear after leaving office.
And I'm looking forward to stay focused on this city as well, to make sure that we do not abandon what we have accomplished here.
He plans to work on a book, a documentary, and go back to school. Reports claim Trump officials once offered him a job if he ended his re-election campaign. Black conservative commentator Candace Owens has been denied entry into Australia after the High Court ruled her presence could incite division. The decision upholds the government's right to block visas for individuals likely to stir political or social unrest, following a similar case involving rapper Ye. And 90s R&B stars Brandy and Monica have reunited for the Boy Is Mine tour, which kicked off Thursday in Cincinnati. The tour runs through December 14th in Jacksonville, with their next stop tonight in Milwaukee. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
Warranty limitations apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are one win away from going back to the World Series. They beat Milwaukee 3-1 Thursday night to take a 3-0 lead in the National League Championship Series. Another dominant performance by the Dodgers pitching staff. 5 pitchers limited Milwaukee to 4 hits. Milwaukee is scoreless in 16 of the last 18 innings in the series. The Dodgers can finish off Milwaukee tonight. First pitch at 5:30. The Lakers and Clippers wrap up their preseason schedule tonight. The Lakers are at home against Sacramento. Their regular season opener is Tuesday against Golden State. The Clippers are at Golden State tonight. They play their regular season opener Wednesday at Utah. The Rams are flying to London this morning after a week-long stay in Baltimore. They play Jacksonville Sunday morning. The Chargers are at home Sunday against the 5-1 Indianapolis Colts. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in the National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
Stop settling for weak sound. It's to level up your game and bring the boom. Hit the town with the ultra-durable LG X Boom portable speaker and enjoy vibrant sound wherever you go. Elevate your listening experience to new heights because, let's be real, your music deserves it. The future of sound is now with LG X Boom. And for a limited time, save 25% at LG.com with code FALL25. Bring the boom. X Boom.
Do you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is letting everyone know about great debt relief options now available to help people with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of your credit card debt. Get a free debt relief consultation when you call 800-259-9922. 800-259-9922. That's 800-259-9922.
It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. LifeLock is here with tips to help protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report scams, and update your software. And for comprehensive identity protection, LifeLock is your best choice. LifeLock alerts you to suspicious uses of your personal information and fixes identity theft, guaranteed, or your money back. Start your protection today with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. Terms apply.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA 1580. Dr. Karam is our very special guest. Dr. Azza Karam currently is a member of the United Nations Secretary General's High-Level Advisory Board on Effective Multilateralism. Prior to joining Religions for Peace, she served for nearly 2 decades in the United Nations, including as coordinator of the Arab Human Development Reports, a senior advisor on culture and lead facilitator, trainer for the UN Strategic Learning Exchanges on Religion, Development, and Diplomacy. During her time in the UN, she founded and was convener of the United Nations Interagency Task Force on Religion and Development, as well as the Multi-Faith Advisory Council of that task force. In our closing, in the last segment of the show, I did slaughter her proper title as well as her proper biography, and I want to apologize about that. But I do want to welcome Dr. Karam forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much for having me. You didn't slaughter it. You just mentioned
It's Friday. I try to separate the meat from the grease. That's what Gina has me doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our co-host on the show is Gina Towns, president and CEO of 519 Productions, and she's the executive producer and creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show right here on Smiley Audio Media. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, hello again, Jesse.
Gina, I want to make this little point, and maybe I can serve this up for fat meat.
Mm.
The Civil War between the North and South at its inception was known as a gentleman's war. That is, the blue troops from the North put on their blue uniforms, and the gray troops from the South put on their gray uniforms. Women were not allowed to fight. Blacks were not allowed to fight. At the end of battles, there was an agreement. Each side could recover their troops, their badly wounded, dismembered troops, either bury them, and the fighting in some cases stopped after 2 or 3 days, and everyone was allowed to go out to the battlefield. And in some ways, the rules of warfare were learned during the American Civil War, but they were also changed. There's no more shaking hands at the end of a battle and high-fiving like, hey, we sure whipped the Yankees today. No, that was a different battle. And African Americans, when I was in Congress, I insisted on the purpose of the war. Why are both sides fighting? The South arguing for their liberty, their right to control other lives and what the future of those lives would do, and the North believing that people had the right endowed by God to make decisions for themselves. One side was fighting by definition to preserve the institution of slavery. Another side was fighting to stop its expansion into the Western states. But this is very different. And I say it's different, Dr. Karam and Gina, in that the dividing line isn't Mason-Dixon. It's not North and South.
Mm-hmm.
The President of the United States has laid a racial context for the conflict, immigration, brown people, and crime, Black people. He has prepositioned Southern troops, people who do not know us, in the North, in our big cities, with certain attitudes and predispositions. And in the case of Texas, they're not even under the authority of the Illinois governor or the President of the United States, but in consultation with the President of the United States, the Texas Armed Guard in Chicago is still under the authority of the governor of Texas, another Civil War historian, prepositioning himself in a city that 160 years ago he could not have imagined even coming close to. And here they are in our faces, coming up here to whip these old Yankees, coming up here to teach these boys a lesson that we didn't learn 160 years ago. And at the center of it, however, is something that was not at the center of the Gentleman's War, but should have been at the center of the Gentleman's War 160 years ago, and that was the issue of race. Race, whether black, brown, or even the issue of the liberties of people, women, the LGBTQIA and others. Liberties and our rights are at stake in their version of what they consider to be outside of the structure of the original intent of the Constitution of the United States, a country that was designed for white men and not for all men who should be created and treated equally. With that said, Gina, this is a very different battle. I mean, it's a moment for reflection on how the language is being used or interpreted. Dr. Karam talked about, we don't want to say it, but we are heading towards something that we have never experienced before. But in a real sense, my white liberal friends in a civil war get to walk right past the Texas boys and not be bothered. I don't get to walk past it. At a Chick-fil-A in Augusta, Georgia, the Chick-fil-A served chicken for 3 white police officers for free. Their partner was African American. They made him pay. They selected him not because of his uniform or his service, but the black guy had to pay. These are the times that we're looking at. Odell Beckham escorted off of the airplane out of first class because he was sleeping after an athletic event. And they made them deboard the entire plane because he wouldn't wake up when he was touched by the flight attendant. He was sleeping. And they made him get off of the plane. And this is a multi-millionaire. Gina, what has become of our country?
With every bit of progress that we may have made, there also is the fact that even in the first administration and in administrations before that, the propagation of an ideology that has never really died is what has existed. And so we have gotten to a point, and that's why I brought up a little bit earlier about the agency or the position from which someone views this. We actually have a generation, and in particular, Generation Z, who has they have no appetite for returning to a place where racism is the call of the day. They want to, in general, live happily ever after, love who they want to love, respect each other's space. And so you get a little bit of the other that Dr. Karam talked about. And it's almost like, it's a rush to kill that seed of progress that we are making. But it's also an ideology that we saw propagated in the first Trump administration, as leaders around the world were elected around this ideology of race. So, it really is going to take a push and a movement. And I think that the generations, and here's the thing about it, you just laid out a lot of history that people don't know. The study of history is a problem if you don't know it.
Dr. Karam, I know that you're going to be with us for the next segment, but also for the next half an hour of our program. We are so grateful that you are here. We are closing in on a break. I'm sure Gina has a number of questions for you when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Dr. Aza Karam and Gina Towns on Fat Meat Fridays.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Open enrollment is your opportunity to choose a plan that connects you to Providence's comprehensive healthcare network. Choose a plan that includes Providence and gain access to a dedicated team of highly trained primary care physicians and specialists. From nationally recognized doctors and hospitals, Providence ensures quality care is always within reach. When you choose Providence, you choose after-hours care through our nurse advice line, urgent care, or virtual express care. You choose 24/7 access through the Providence mobile app to message providers, request prescription refills, schedule appointments, check lab results, and more. This open enrollment, prioritize your well-being with the peace of mind that comes from choosing a provider that values excellence and compassionate care. Don't just choose a plan. Choose a plan dedicated to health equity and community engagement. Choose a plan that believes health is a human right. Choose a plan that delivers exceptional care and cares about your community. Choose a plan that offers Providence. Visit chooseprovidence.org to learn more. JP Morgan Chase offers tips for the local business owners in 2025. Small business landscape is ever-changing, and the Los Angeles market is no exception. A startup or legacy business, revisiting your mission statement and recalibrating offerings can renew opportunities for growth and innovations. Programs like Chase for Business Coaching for Impact gives entrepreneurs access to expert guidance, helping you streamline operations, strategize your growth, and navigate complex challenges. Businesses with a clear sense of purpose can navigate any challenge effectively, but also build stronger customer loyalty. Visit chase.com/coaching for impact for more information. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow. ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays, where our creator, Gina Towns, president and CEO of 519 Productions, hosts Reflectivity on our weekly series. She's a graduate of Hampton University with a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Media and Journalism. Gina also earned her Master's of Arts in Theology and Social Justice from Princeton Theological Seminary. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hi, Jesse.
Gina, Dr. Karam has offered some very sobering thoughts today on the state of our country. Maybe we should pivot now to the state of our world. Dr. Karam, the peace deal between the Israelis and I want to say, is it the Israelis and the Palestinians, or is it the Israelis and the rest of the Arab world imposed on the Palestinians?
I think it is safe to say that the Palestinians are Palestinians in their own right, but they are also Arabs. And therefore, that which impacts on them is that which impacts on the rest of the Arab-speaking peoples, quite frankly.
Were they meaningful players in the negotiation process for their peace? It seems to me that you have to have both sides there together. I mean, obviously not with Hamas, but the people themselves. Were they part of any part of the process for peace in this process?
I think the Palestinians have been and continue to be misjudged and misunderstood on multiple levels. All actors in a war need to be actors in peace. We make an egregious error that lives with us and which we have to pay for and generations continue to pay for when we seek to exclude certain communities who were part of the war. We then seek to exclude them from the building of the peace or the making of the peace. It doesn't matter how egregious actors are deemed to be. At the end of the day, if you have borne arms against one another, regardless of who you are, in order to rebuild the peace, you will have to be part of that table. And I think we need to acknowledge that we don't have to like the people with whom we negotiate peace, but we do need to be inclusive of those who did bear the arms against us. So I have a very serious problem with, well, we can't talk to this one, but we can talk to that one. Well, we're going to build peace with that one, but we're not going to negotiate with that one.
I agree.
It does not make any sense. The art of exclusion is not part of the skill for peace building.
It seems to me that part of the negotiations, at least that which has been made public, it doesn't deal with the legitimate self-determination of the Palestinian people. I keep hearing about the absence of noise, which Dr. King talked about, but he says until there is the presence of justice, this isn't going to end well over time. Am I wrong in that assertion?
Absolutely not. And obviously neither was Martin Luther King, but he also did say, Jesse, that our humanity dies the minute we think we cannot speak for one another and uphold one another and are silent about others' pain and trauma. And I think we have suffered that. I think we are living in a moment where we see one aspect. This people have harmed this type of people. This person is harming that type of person. But we have to understand, Jesse, and you've referred to this and alluded to this and written to it repeatedly, as has Gina in her many conversations and dealings. The point is this: everything is interconnected. Race is interconnected with religion, is interconnected with culture, is interconnected with politics, is interconnected with Prejudices are the most interconnected fabrics of our human life. We take each thread, we seek to take each thread and look at it in isolation from the other. But you cannot speak to racism without also taking into account how it impacts on sexism, how it impacts on other forms and multiple forms of prejudice. Perhaps prejudice is the most unified of our time, of our human existence. Prejudices are one big interwoven fabric. We have done each other and ourselves a tremendous disservice, I believe, by trying to take the various threads and then mobilizing and working and seeing only that, or seeing everything through the prism of that thread. You cannot understand racism without understanding sexism, without understanding other forms of gender discrimination, without understanding the ways that poverty influences us, without understanding the ways in which power is so unevenly divided, without understanding the ways in which education is so unevenly offered, without understanding the ways in which healthcare is determinedly and deliberately denied. We cannot understand these things in isolation, but we have done a very good job of picking apart the forms of prejudice, picking apart our discriminations and trying to address them separately. And if we have learned anything by what's going on right now, is that we can't do that, that is weakening every single one of us at all times. Human rights is the saving grace of the 20th century. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a saving grace. You know why? Because it is built on the common values to all faith and traditions. If we didn't have traditions and we didn't have faiths, we would not have been able to come up with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Is it a perfect document? Absolutely not. But does it contain, and is it built upon the essence of that of which all believe and all are principles? Yes, it does. And therefore, to try to take away one particular set of rights and make a big brouhaha and live our entire life and die trying to defend those one set of rights means that we have inadvertently, very effectively sidelined, marginalized, excluded other humans and rights. We cannot just take one right and say this is the most important right of all. And yet you will hear that argument in almost every domain. This right is more important. No, that right is more important. No, this right is more important. Your right to self-determination is my right of self-determination too, but it is also my right of expression. It is my right to life. It is my right to health. It is my right to education. There is no such thing as one right at a time.
That was a masterclass from one of the best to ever do it and have ever done it, Dr. Azza Karam. She's going to be joining us for the next half hour on Reflectivity on Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns and Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA 1580. There will be more with Dr. Azza Karam when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams says he will not disappear after leaving office.
And I'm looking forward to stay focused on this city as well, to make sure that we do not abandon what we have accomplished here.
He plans to work on a book, a documentary, and go back to school. Reports claim Trump officials once offered him a job if he ended his re-election campaign. Black conservative commentator Candace Owens has been denied entry into Australia after the High Court ruled her presence could incite division. The decision upholds the government's right to block visas for individuals likely to stir political or social unrest, following a similar case involving rapper Ye. And 90s R&B stars Brandy and Monica have reunited for the Boy Is Mine tour, which kicked off Thursday in Cincinnati. The tour runs through December 14th in Jacksonville, with their next stop tonight in Milwaukee. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
Warranty limitations apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are one win away from going back to the World Series. They beat Milwaukee 3-1 Thursday night to take a 3-0 lead in the National League Championship Series. Another dominant performance by the Dodgers pitching staff. 5 pitchers limited Milwaukee to 4 hits. Milwaukee is scoreless in 16 of the last 18 innings in the series. The Dodgers can finish off Milwaukee tonight. First pitch at 5:30. The Lakers and Clippers wrap up their preseason schedule tonight. The Lakers are at home against Sacramento. Their regular season opener is Tuesday against Golden State. The Clippers are at Golden State tonight. They play their regular season opener Wednesday at Utah. The Rams are flying to London this morning after a week-long stay in Baltimore. They play Jacksonville Sunday morning. The Chargers are at home Sunday against the 5-1 Indianapolis Colts. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for Black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power from seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing, racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County, Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour on Fat Meat Fridays, co-hosted with Gina Towns on Reflectivity, is Dr. Aza Karam, currently a member of the United Nations Secretary General's High-Level Advisory Board on Effective Multilateralism. Dr. Karam, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you for having me very much.
Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Dr. Karam, we've seen a number of unilateral actions by the United States in the last couple of months. And while your expertise is multilateralism, you know, the world maybe's most influential military, and as well as the world's most influential economy, and the entire tariff, if you will, regime of Donald Trump doesn't appear to be in step with the idea of peace or justice through multilateralism. This is kind of some cowboy go it alone kind of stuff. Your take on the role of the United States and how it's being perceived by the rest of the world?
Well, the hard truth is that in spite of everything you've said quite accurately to describe the United States of America, it is also an empire in decline. And I'm sorry to say it, but I think it's the truth. I think we need to realize we did have a unilateral moment, which went on for many years after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, for those who may remember. One dates oneself by saying so, but that's a truth. We did actually begin to live in a very unilateral era where there was one power that seemed to emerge victorious once the Berlin Wall's collapse deemed also and signified also the collapse of socialism and certainly of communism, et cetera, et cetera. But we realized, all of us globally, especially, but not only, after 2001, September 11, after the global financial crisis of 2008, I think the world woke up to the fact that unilateralism wasn't working, wasn't doing a very good job of managing the common good. I think we live in a moment now where we're seeing the decline of the empire of the United States, which is precisely why, by the way, we see the emergence of bully tactics and politics. It is almost as if the United States wishes to impose itself by bullying everyone, thereby trying to deny a very, very normal trend, and that is definitely happening, which is that power shifts globally are shifting, which is that we are going through globally, geopolitically, massive earthquake where the tectonic plates themselves are shifting. But some of us are standing there saying, it's me, myself, and I, and we're the greatest, no matter what. Yet the earth under their feet is shifting. It therefore bears, to be honest, it is a moment where we have to show remarkable compassion towards this apparent lunacy that is trying to blind itself to a changing reality. This administration is behaving so atrociously, in part, it's not just about ideology. I wish it were ideology. At least there's something in ideology that may make sense. This is behaving so atrociously precisely because it lacks ideology. It lacks a worldview that seems to take into account reality and the shifting tectonic plates of that reality. We should begin to look and see where other parts of the world, Jesse, Asia, the East, China, are emerging as very, very powerful global interlocutors. Yes, there are still relative power imbalances. May they continue, by the way, because power imbalances are what keep some of us able to see what is good and what is not so good. If everything were the same, my goodness, what a boring world it would be. And it would not make much sense. But we do need to realize that we're living in a moment of remarkable transformation. And as such, we may have to come to terms with the fact that the United States of America, the world's global power, was loved and hated, remains loved and hated at the same time. But there are other emerging powers that we need to be aware of at the very least, respectful of at the very most. And by behaving like bullies, we do not make an empire persist. In fact, we may make the crumbling of the empire much faster and much more harmful for all concerned. It is time to be aware of the fact, Jesse, that this remarkable great nation, which I have espoused as my own, and therefore I am a convert to it, more fervent in the love for it than perhaps anyone born into it. But this remarkable nation is no longer a world's power. It is one of, it is not the only. And because it is the one of, it is time to see the equality of the others. It is time to see that our dependence is interdependent, that we can no longer just rough it out and bully everyone else as we seek to do, but that we may have to change. But, Jesse, it takes two hands to clap. This is a bully. Why is this succumbing to the bully? Why is the world leaders, as we see them today, why are they behaving like they all have to wait and knock at the door and wait with their heads bowed and try to negotiate a better deal for themselves? Why is that happening? It's because global leadership has lost its sense, its compass of decency and of equality in human rights and dignity. It is not just this country's leader that seems to be acting unilaterally, Jesse. He is acting unilaterally for sure, but he's acting unilaterally with others who are acting unilaterally. We are living in a moment where the idea that we may need to work hand in hand, including with a hand we don't like, by putting my hand in yours, even if I dislike you, especially because I dislike you. But that's exactly what I need to do. And yet almost all the other world leaders, almost all, not all, but almost all the other world leaders are behaving in very similar ways indeed. That is the trauma of this moment, that we do not have a leadership anywhere in our nations, 193 countries or members of the United Nations, 195 territories around the world. Very few of them are actually believing that we need to work together. The small island developing states of the Caribbean are the ones who may have some understanding of this because they know that they are sinking.
literally thinking. So they come together in solidarity because they need to depend on one another and the rest of the world. Must we really all wait until the moment when we are all sinking for us to be able to reach out and save each other? Must we wait until that moment?
Thank you, Dr. Karam. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Dr. Aza Karam and Gina Towns on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40, and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Stop settling for weak sound. It's time to level up your game and bring the boom. Hit the town with the ultra-durable LG X Boom portable speaker and enjoy vibrant sound wherever you go. Elevate your listening experience to new heights because, let's be real, your music deserves it. The future of sound is now with LG X Boom. And for a limited time, save 25% at LG.com with code FALL25. Bring the boom. X Boom.
Do you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is letting everyone know about great debt relief options now available to help people with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of your credit card debt. Get a free debt relief consultation when you call 800-259-9922. 800-259-9922. That's 800-259-9922.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than Dr. Aza Karam, who joins us along with the show's producer, director, and host of Fat Meat Fridays, Reflectivity, to discuss what the top faith leaders around the world are saying about America and the end of the Israeli-Gaza conflict. We're wondering, of course, if the Pope and others will weigh in on justice, truth, and mercy. We're waiting to hear more from religious leaders who are witnessing the unraveling of the American experiment and the American idea. Dr. Karam, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks so much for having me, Jesse.
Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks, Jesse.
Gina, this is our longest segment. I'd love for you to engage Dr. Karam.
Sure. I really like to pick up on where we left off before the break, and talking about empire in decline, and in a little bit of study that Jesse engaged in over a decade. You find comments from the framers of the Constitution. You find them having explored and gone back to empires prior to this one. And they tried to figure out what it was that made them last for as long as they did, and what made them go into decline. And they came up with the solution to try to base this new experiment upon a foundation that had to do with principle, that had to do with God, slavery notwithstanding at the time. It seems that we've gotten away from our experiment. There have been some principled people, which I feel like around the world, when the United States has not lived up to its principle, engaged in things that we should not have engaged in internationally, but then tried to go back and call a spade or tell somebody else what to do. When we have not done well at home, that has caused us some problems. And I think when you don't exemplify all the way through to all of the issues you talked about, whether it's sexism, racism, what we get down to is human rights. All of those things have to be taken into consideration. And what we can't ignore is this new world order seems to leave out nations that are Black and brown in their move forward and in their solidarity. And I don't know how we get past that. And that's why when you and I talked earlier today, and I said, well, what are the leaders of all of the faith movements saying? What is the Pope saying? Even though, the Pope is the leader of the Catholics, people do listen to what the Pope says. And so where are we going to find that moral leadership in this hour?
First of all, Gina, I think you've said it very, very powerfully and very well. And I'm going to thank you for what you've just said. I also want to point out that, like life, empires grow and they also break up and die. There is no continuity of empire anywhere. History is full of the rise and the decline of empire. So the question isn't, how can we not make this empire decline? The question is, how do we decline gracefully in such a way that our shared human dignity, based on our shared human rights, are jointly upheld for the common good? It is the how of the decline, Gina, that I think we need to focus on. And you're absolutely correct to bring up the moral leadership. You may recall, all of us remember, how the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa was overcome. And it wasn't overcome by virtue of one religious leader speaking out against it. It was overcome by the solidarity of the religious with the political, all across the board. Mm-hmm. It was overcome by the solidarity that was in South Africa, outside Africa, throughout the nations of the world. It was overcome because we worked together as human beings and businesses, individuals, nations. It was the working together and standing in solidarity with one another. And therefore, kudos, tremendous kudos to the South Africans for then realizing at the height of the genocide against the Gazans and Palestinians that they needed to act on behalf of this oppressed other. And they took Israel to the International Court because it was about how we would, it isn't about South Africa and Israel and Palestine. It is quintessentially, and again, this comes back to how does an empire decline and how can we do it with grace? It is about how can we uphold the rule of law, because the rule of law is all we've got to distinguish us from the rule of the jungle. When sometimes I watch these documentaries on nature, Gina, I often am so amazed at the fact that there seems to be a law of the jungle that is functional when us as human beings do not seem to have a law that keeps us functional. But yet here we are disregarding law. And in the disregard for law is inherent as a disregard for human rights. And inherent in that is a disregard for one another in our diversity, and therefore a complete disregard for human dignity. These things are interconnected. When we let go of law, we let go of rights, we let go of dignity. They are interconnected. It is important what the Pope has to say. Of course, it is important. But it is equally important to see how the Pope stands alongside, speaks alongside, and serves alongside other faith leaders from across the faith spectrum, including indigenous peoples and traditional elders. That is even more important than what he alone may have to say, Gina. And the day that we can hold him and other institutions and faith actors accountable, their moral obligation and imperative to stand alongside, not just to speak up to power and against harm, but to serve alongside, to combine their wealth, because they have plenty wealth, alongside, to combine, to invest alongside one another for the common good of all. Not once have we seen this happen in a religious or political history, that one religion comes together with each other, that together they share the resources in the service of all of humanity. We have not seen that ever. We have seen religious wars. History teaches us religious empires at war. And we have, history teaches us, is teaching us at the moment, how different conflicts can take on, wear the cloak of a particular religion and fight in the name thereof against one another. But we have not yet, including at the apex of COVID, when the world was under the same cloud, suffering the same consequences, we did not see an example of moral leadership that was not just based on one institution and its remarkable service, but was about how the different institutions came together to invest within one another to serve all. We did not see this example. This is the ultimate moral imperative. This has yet to be realized. And neither the Pope nor any of the other popes of all the other faith traditions, and I use the word Pope generally to describe leadership, religious leadership, we have not seen that from religious leaders. In fact, even amongst the Palestinians, we have not seen the Muslim and the Christian come together and speak as one. So we have a problem in our religious, we have a problem in our religious ecospheres. And that problem is deep, and it can hurt us and is harming us. And we cannot hold a finger against the politicians unless we see the other fingers that are pointing within ourselves at how we have and continue to fail to stand alongside in the service of all. It doesn't matter what we're serving. It is all. It is the human rights of all at all times for all people.
And so certainly when I think about what stands in the way of other, I can't help but mention greed. I can't help but think about, you can't serve both God and money. If you're talking about religious leaders, if you're talking about those leaders who lead countries. And so the people, I mean, this has been an issue throughout history, period, throughout the world. We've never really gotten to a point where leadership has been concerned about humanity. And now humanity has to include the earth and the ecosystem that is, you know, man, animal, mammal, and human.
Life. It has to be all life. Absolutely all life. You're absolutely right.
I was reflecting upon a series of books, 3 volumes, in fact, that I read when I was at the seminary, and I reflected upon them again when I was released from incarceration. A 3-volume series called The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbons.
Yes.
Classic series of books that reflects upon the fall of empires and nations. And I also reflected upon some questions that were raised after the Declaration of Independence from those founders who understood the theological space of what it meant to create a new nation and establish a foundation. And believe it or not, they asked these questions. What was it about Jesus's kingdom on earth that had survived 1776 years without firing a bullet, without shooting a rocket, without building a tank, without casting a stone? What was it about his legacy that continues to march 2025 years after his crucifixion and resurrection? And they had to get to the core of something that they called the religion of Jesus. And it's not congregationalism, it's not denominationalism, it's not what Dr. King said, but acknowledge that we are the most segregated people in the world at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. And there's nothing in the body of Jesus of Nazareth the body of Christ, that we could have ever done necessarily to bridge that particular gap. So they set out to discover the religion of Jesus. And after they purviewed and researched through the scriptures, they arrived at a lineage. That the expectations of Isaiah, the expectations of the Bible, that someone would come in the lineage of David, that someone would come and save the people, that someone would come and offer hope. Some wanted a military leader, others wanted a savior, but this idea of what constituted the religion of Jesus at the hour of his birth and at the hour of his crucifixion. And what the Bible says is that he will be born in the lineage of David, that he would do David's work for them. And so there was some confusion, including Barabbas and others who wanted him to take up arms against the empire. But Jesus's ministry was one of love, of mercy, of caring. And so much of civilization for the last 2,025 years is based upon the precepts of loving your enemy, loving your neighbor, trying to get along with the other, trying to understand people and being empathetic and patient with the poor and people who don't have very much. And so they put this word construction in the Constitution, in the sect of one, in the religion of Jesus, and they hid all kinds of words around it. And Gina, those words, commander of the army, and that's a plus sign, and repriever pardoner. That is the function of the lineage of David. Mm-hmm. And they created an article called Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 in the Constitution. It really defines the presidency, but our minds have divided it into, we need a hell of a military commander with the big armed services, and we forgive a few people at the end of our presidencies. But they put the function of a man who would be born in the lineage of David right in the middle of our Constitution because they wanted their experiment to last at least 2,025 years. And we're just, I'm afraid to say, Dr. Karam, we're not going to get there. We're just not going to get there. Anyway, that's what my thoughts are, Gina.
Well, thank you for bringing us to the edge and dropping us off. I just, I know that you always ask for a word of hope. I know that Dr. Karam is leaving us at this break, so we have to ask her for that word of hope, even based on what you just heard Jesse talk about and what I talked about, the hope and the vision of the experiment that is democracy, and overcoming all of the evils that choose to come against it. Give us some hope for our world, Dr. Karam.
Oh, if only I could, Gina, to do that. Let me just share that one of my deepest reflections here, based on what you've both been saying, is that no one religion is going to save us. No one religion will save the world, but faith is our means of salvation. And what that means is appreciating and understanding that if you have faith, people of faith, and I'm not just talking about the Abrahamic faiths, people who have faith in the divine that is in all of us, about all of us, and wouldn't be without all of us. That includes earth and plants and everything else. That it's faith in the divine that also, by the way, whether we know it or not, appreciate it or not, resides in the heart of every human. In my faith tradition, Islam, we are taught that the Lord is closer to us than our own breath. Imagine that, reflect on that. We understand profoundly that he's not something out there. It may not even be a he. It is not a force out there. It is within. And therefore, the imperative is to see the divine in the other rather than try to make the other the enemy. Because after all, we are all created by the same forces. Now, whether you think they were physics or whether you understand that to be the divine, I really don't care. The point is we're all created by the same force, and whether we appreciate it or not, we will either all live and rise together or perish together. That is the biggest lesson of climate. That is the biggest lesson. If the heart can reach out to the heart, and when the heart reaches to the heart, regardless of how that heart, what kind of body that heart is in, we will be with the divine, in the divine, of the divine.
Wow. Dr. Karam,
seek.
I've got to thank you for being our very special guest. You know you're welcome anytime you want on the show. This is Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Gina Towns when we come forward.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson has unveiled his 2026 budget proposal, which includes a new tax on social media companies expected to raise $31 million.
It is far past time we treat social media companies the same way.
The plan cuts 446 city jobs, but avoids hikes to property, grocery, and garbage taxes. A music educator, Christopher Alberts, who is Black from the School Without Walls, has been named DC's 2026 Teacher of the Year. Black Mayor Muriel Bowser joined in celebrating Alberts, who's taught for 21 years and earned 4 Grammy nominations for Music Educator. And a judge has sided with rapper Lil Wayne in his legal battle with former attorney Ron Sweeney. The dispute began in 2019 over a disputed 10% fee Sweeney charged. A New York judge ruled the agreement invalid, freeing Wayne from paying millions. Sweeney can now only seek reasonable fees to be decided later. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
Warranty limitations apply. This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are 1 win away from going back to the World Series. They beat Milwaukee 3-1 Thursday night to take a 3-0 lead in the National League Championship Series. Another dominant performance by the Dodgers pitching staff. 5 pitchers limited Milwaukee to 4 hits. Milwaukee is scoreless in 16 of the last 18 innings in the series. The Dodgers can finish off Milwaukee tonight. First pitch at 5:30. The Lakers and Clippers wrap up their preseason schedule tonight. The Lakers are at home against Sacramento. Their regular season opener is Tuesday against Golden State. The Clippers are at Golden State tonight. They play their regular season opener Wednesday at Utah. The Rams are flying to London this morning after a week-long stay in Baltimore. They play Jacksonville Sunday morning. The Chargers are at home Sunday against the 5-1 Indianapolis Colts. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for Black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power from seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing, racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County. Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. LifeLock is here with tips to help protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report scams, and update your software. And for comprehensive identity protection, LifeLock is your best choice. LifeLock alerts you to suspicious uses of your personal information and fixes identity theft, guaranteed, or your money back. Start your protection today with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. Terms apply.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Reflectivity, Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. Gina is the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the president of 519 Productions. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, thank you, Jesse.
Gina, I want to take this opportunity to say, wow. You know, I was feeling some kind of way being here in Chicago, having spent time on this station in Los Angeles, having gone back and forth with a number of guests over the National Guard presence in Los Angeles, and now to have the National Guard, the Army, the Special Forces from Texas, the government all over our city are wreaking havoc. It's quite a different experience than where this started out when we were reporting on and in Los Angeles. On this initial occupation. It seems to have come to a kind of culmination right here in Chicago, which is where the president of the United States wants it to go down. And so I was feeling some kind of way. And when I listened to Dr. Karam today, and she put our nation in the context of decline. Now, I'm not supposed to feel good about decline, but it actually lifted my spirits because I could frame in my mind where we are and better understand it. I don't feel good about it, but I better understand it because of the way she framed the arguments. You know?
Yeah, I really thought that her last comment, what she left us on, was extremely powerful. The notion that we can do what we do. You have to give it your best effort. And her response to the idea of eternity in a nation. And I think if we don't have that kind of hope and that kind of vision, then we will also perish. And so,
in a real sense, faith. She hung around the idea of faith, and Jesus of Nazareth said that man or woman cannot live by bread alone. And I'm beginning to think, in light of what Dr. Karam shared with us, is that faith is as heavy as bread.
Yeah.
That with faith, I can fast through the food and nutrition part of the biological function. But she's right. And I think he's right. I know he's right. And I believe she's absolutely consistent with that. That in this faith proposition, this idea that we keep hope alive in spite of is a big deal.
Right. I also like the fact that she talked about all of the religions. And so it doesn't really matter in the larger scheme of things, because each one of them is based on one another, and that there is something higher than ourselves that sustains us, sustains the earth and everything in it. And so sometimes I think we get lost and forget that proposition. But I think that can bring us into some reality so that we can take a deep breath and move forward from day to day.
Can't wait for her to come back on the show.
Sure.
Certainly looking forward to that, Gina. It's Fat Meat Fridays. We cover the week.
Well, we are going to cover the week, but I want to play this clip, Jesse.
I apologize about that. Yes, please roll the clip.
Well, the Supreme Court appears ready to gut the Voting Rights Act, the landmark civil rights legislation that was signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson in 1965, aimed at ending discrimination targeting black voters. Now, this case before the High Court centers around this district right here in Louisiana. It's the 6th Congressional District, and it's the second majority black district there. A group of white plaintiffs sued, arguing lawmakers had considered race in drawing that map in violation of the 14th and 15th Amendments.
CNN's Tom Foreman and CNN Chief Supreme Court Analyst Joan Biskupic are here with us in the Situation Room. Joan, let me start with you. This decision could all come down to what? Justice Brett Kavanaugh. What did we hear from him yesterday?
Yes, he has been the decisive vote in several cases on race, most importantly, one from Alabama 2 years ago when we had the same kind of situation where a state had been found to have been in violation of the Voting Rights Act for diluting the votes of blacks by packing them into one particular district and making it impossible for them to have really strong electoral power. And lower courts had said, you have to create another majority black district, just as what happened here. Louisiana was ordered to have 2 majority black districts. And Justice Kavanaugh was someone who really showed his hand early on about concerns he has about race. Let's hear from him first.
The issue, as you know, is that this court's cases in a variety of contexts have said that race-based remedies are permissible for a period of time, sometimes for a long period of time, decades in some cases, but that they should not be indefinite and should have an endpoint. And what exactly do you think the endpoint should be, or how would we know for the intentional use of race to create districts?
Now, Brett Kavanaugh was speaking of circumstances for like campus affirmative action or school integration plans, but this case is different.
Obviously very significant. What do you think?
And what about the liberal justices? Sure, in fact, they pointed out the differences that this is a remedy for actual violations on the ground. This is when states have been found to have violated the Voting Rights Act because of discriminatory maps. Let's hear from Justice Sotomayor as she responded to the State Solicitor General from Louisiana.
The government has no business telling citizens in which districts they may live or what voting power they
But it's not doing that, counsel. The 6 plaintiffs in this case are white plaintiffs who live in a district with black voters. So no one's keeping them out of that district. No one's stopping them from participating in the voting process. No one is stopping them from trying to run candidates or support candidates that reflect their views. But this state is stopping black voters from doing that in many districts because it's packing them into areas that whites overwhelm them.
Okay, so you can see how senior liberal Sonia Sotomayor and others really tried to answer some of the concerns of Justice Kavanaugh and to keep the focus on what goes on the ground and how any kind of diversity that we've had in the South for state or federal officials has come in large measure because of the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, a lot of history here. Right?
Yeah.
Stand by. I want to go to Tom over at the Magic Wall.
So let me be clear. From the inception of the Republic on September 17th, 1787 to the present, there has never been a moment in American history where white folks did not have representation. There's just no moment where they've not had a majority of representatives representing them in Congress or in state legislatures around the country. There is no moment in the history of this nation where white voters have been discriminated against. They've had white Republicans, they've had liberal Democrats, Both sides of white thinking have represented them since the inception of the country. They've been through the Democratic Party, the Federalist Party, the Whig Party. They've controlled the Republican Party. I mean, the only thing black people have ever controlled is the Black Panther Party, and it's not a political party. So white folks have always had representation in this nation. There is no history of white folks being discriminated against, except to desegregate Congress, the place where white folks meet, and the powerful white folks who meet in state legislatures. There is no history of blacks being there long enough to fight for anything for black folks. That's what this struggle is about.
And that's the fat meat on this Friday.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Gina Towns and Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580, Fat Meat Fridays, and Reflectivity on our week.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580. Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in a National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Severe from Vicks.
Sinex Severe Nasal Spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Severe instantly relieves nasal congestion and works 6 times faster than nasal decongestant tablets. The 12 hours of relief allow you to get back to the moments that matter without congestion.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Try Sinex Severe from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Oh, how's that flu, babe? Did you take DayQuil Intense Flu yet?
Nah, I got this. Ugh, okay, I don't got this.
You stay on the couch, and I'll grab the DayQuil.
Undo your flu symptoms with DayQuil Intense Flu. DayQuil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms.
I'm ready for that to-do list.
Wow, you do got this.
DayQuil Intense Flu. The daytime coughing, aching, fever, under your flu, medicine. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? You may be able to reduce your risk by managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, being physically active, eating healthy, and exercising your mind. To learn more about AD, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention, and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's look at the wake of the Civil War. That's when the 15th Amendment came along. It said the right of citizens of the United States should not be denied or abridged by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. What they were trying to do is say here, look, the slaves have been freed. They now must have rights. They cannot be treated like second-class citizens. Nonetheless, very quickly, a lot of states, particularly in the South, enacted poll taxes, literacy tests, intimidation tactics. Poll taxes were just what it sounds like. You had to pay a tax and present a receipt in many places to prove that you had a right to vote. That knocked out a lot of black people who were very poor, a lot of poor white people as well, and sometimes this was cumulative. If you didn't pay one time, it was added to the next time. Pretty soon you couldn't vote at all. Literacy tests. These were extremely tricky Look at this. It says if you get one thing wrong here, if you can't prove a 5th grade education, you get one answer wrong in 10 minutes, you have failed. Look at question number 1. Draw a line around the number or letter of this sentence. How do you answer that? That's what a literacy test was. Many people thought it was just a trick to knock out people who they didn't want to vote. And of course, intimidation tactics, Klansmen, people like this going around waving nooses and things to say basically you cannot vote. This became intolerable to many people, many rights activists in this country, in the black community and beyond. It all culminated in Selma, Alabama in 1965, the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, giant clash with police, many, many injuries. A few months later, President Lyndon Johnson had basically had enough, and he signed the Voting Rights Act with Martin Luther King Jr. and others in attendance here. And the Voting Rights Act basically said this is intolerable. No voting qualification or prerequisite to voting or standard practice or procedure shall be imposed or applied by any state or political subdivision to deny or abridge the right of any citizen of the United States to vote on account of race or color.
So what was the impact of the Voting Rights Act?
It was big and it was fast. By the end of the year, 250,000 new black voters had registered. This was huge. In some states, this was just the magnitude of increase was absolutely unbelievable. Suddenly you had people who not only were able to vote, but you had black candidates who were able to run and have a real chance of winning. This is one of the reasons this is seen as a seminal event in the rights movement in this country for all people, certainly for black people and minority groups, but for all people, and considered one of the giant historic events in the history of this country working toward a just and equal system. And it's been...
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA. Gina, there is just no history. 47 presidents, 1 black. 47 presidents, no woman as president of the United States. There's never been a black Speaker of the House. They've always had a white Speaker of the House. Whether they're Democrat, a Federalist, a Whig, a Tory, a Tea Party, a Freedom Caucus, there's no Black Panther Party in Congress. In fact, the African Americans that are elected to Congress are some of the most loyal people to this country. Men and women who've served their country in various facets, including in the military, ministers, men and women who believe in America and have always contributed in some way, shape, or fashion to the culture, to the economy, to the growth and the sustenance of this nation. They've defended this nation from the very first black man to die in the Revolutionary War. We have died in every single war, even when we weren't allowed to fight alongside others. And when we were allowed to fight, we were put on the front lines and we died disproportionately. And yet we still, with all of that contribution to America, have been unable to represent our own voices in state legislatures and in the Congress. So the Voting Rights Act of 1965 says, draw congressional districts because white Democrats in state legislatures and white Republicans in state legislatures, when they get together in a room by themselves, just like on some of the battlefields of the Civil War, they draw districts that fit their interests. How can they win? They draw incumbency protection districts. Until the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which said, no, before you all divide up the state, Democrat and Republican, these people here who were left out of the equation of America, you must give consideration to the fact that you made them live in this barrio, in this ghetto, in this trailer park. You put them in these little neighborhoods. And so, no, you don't get to divide up states with a knife. You take a pencil and you figure out how to create a district with the Negro people so they can get to Congress and speak for their own, since neither side speaks for us. That's the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That is Section 2. And that is the case Robinson versus Calais, or Louisiana versus Calais, that was heard yesterday in the Supreme Court. And I'm telling you, just as sure as I'm sitting here, there were 16 blacks elected to Congress in first Reconstruction, 14 in the House, 2 in the United States Senate. But by the turn of the century, when the Supreme Court got finished with those blacks in Congress, there was no one left. And that began Jim Crow. And then Jim Crow was followed by Brown versus the Board of Education, which was followed by the modern civil rights movement. And then Congress finally implemented the 14th Amendment through legislation with the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the implementation legislation of the 15th Amendment. And now we got 62 blacks in Congress: Jasmine Crockett, Jonathan Jackson, Cleo Fields, Al Green, Maxine Waters, Andre Carson, Emmanuel Cleaver. All of these people have come to Congress. Lift every voice and sing, "Stony the road we trod, God of our weary years," carrying all of this faith with them. And here is the court of the United States arguing that white folks have been discriminated against because we're there fighting for our own communities and raising our own voices. But there is no history of white folks not having a Democratic Party or a Republican Party fighting for them. There's no such history. There's never been a moment in the history of Congress where white folks didn't have a majority. Never. And that's true in state legislatures around our country. This is not the Bahamas. This is not Jamaica.
Yeah.
This is the United States of America.
Yeah.
So we make room for African Americans and Hispanics and women and others to be able to speak for their own people, their own cultures, their own history, their own ways of life. America said in the arguments yesterday, we've had enough of that.
Right.
Gina?
So one of the reasons why I thought it was important to play both of those clips, which I thought was one of the best coverages that I had heard of anything, was because Justice Kavanaugh is asking a question that just really perplexed me. So how long should we allow if we put it in this term, a reparation, if you will, for 400 years of slavery? You decide that 60 years is enough, and that's enough time for you to get what you want, experience this, experience that, but now go on back over there in the corner. And to your point, white people have never, when they came here to Ellis Island, they figured out how they wanted to fit into the society. They didn't have to fight for their freedom. They figured out how to work and what political party they were going to be associated with at that time. And so when I heard the question, I was incensed that we would be here. But I did like that we came back with a history lesson of amendments, really 13, 14, and 15, because they're all interconnected as they're connected to the Voting Rights Act, because these had to do with slavery and the freedom from slavery and citizenship from slavery and the right to vote and pick my destiny
from slavery.
So the question that we are posing right now cannot be appropriately posed to anybody. The Supreme Court of the United States should not touch this. And the mere fact that there's a black man sitting in Thurgood Marshall's seat who is probably going to be the dissenting vote is, and I'm sorry we don't have time to go through everybody's show, but I will pick Aubrey Hendricks because he says sometimes you just got to Bogart. And then Todd Urey followed him and said this is going to be milquetoast versus Bogart. That's the weekend summary.
Yeah, I heard that. What a summary it was. What a week it was. And now they're talking about redrawing all the congressional districts in the state of Illinois, Indiana, New York.
Flood these congressmen's phones.
And so forth and so on.
Write the letters. If you can go, show up on the steps of the Supreme Court. Make a visit.
It's crazy. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Fat Meat Fridays. Until next time, another exciting week and hopefully a safe one. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BI.